Hey CS260, this is Professor Lee Jensen, and today I'm going to give you a simple intro about what you can do in order to complete your React Part 2 deliverable. I'm going to start with a super simple example here. So this kind of builds off the React router instruction that we gave earlier. So instead of having three different colors here, I've just got a login tab and a play tab, and then I'm using the React router to toggle between these two. So if we go look at the actual source code for this, hopefully this will look fairly familiar. So here's my app component, here's my navigation elements, and here's my routes, and I'm toggling between the login component and the play component. Up here I've got my login component, it's just displaying login, my play component just displaying play. And to show that it's working, I'm going to go ahead and put a div in here, a div in here. And we're going to display some sort of variable. So now I'm just going to put like 0 in here. Come back over here, toggle to my play, and you can see that 0 showing up. Now what I want to do is actually make some sort of functionality for my play component. So I'm going to add a button in here, and I'm going to call the text on that button is going to say count. And then I'm going to put an on-click handler here, and I'm going to set that to a function which is like, button click. How about count click? Like that better. Okay, and then I can create a function, which is count click. And just to start off, I'm just going to log that to the console that count was clicked. Okay, save that out. Come over here, bring up my development tools, go to the console here, click on that button, and you can see that count is actually getting called. So that's great. But instead, let's create a React state variable and update that count. So now I can do const. And I'm going to do a count and set count. So I'm just going and telling React to put in your table this variable, which I'm going to use for this play component, which is going to represent how many times the button has been clicked. And so now whenever on count click is actually pressed, I'm going to call set count. I'm going to take the previous value of count, add 1 to it, and that should update the table, which will cause the component to be re-rendered and displayed. So down here at the bottom, instead of just displaying 0, I can now display count. And we should have like full functionality of showing the round trip between the React state and re-rendering the component. And that looks great. Everything's running there. The problem that we have is that whenever I refresh this page, that count's going to go back to 0. If I add some more count on here and I go to login and then come back again to play, it's going to go back to 0 again. So I really want to persist what that count is somewhere. Now when you do your backend, you can call off to your server and store that count there and then retrieve it again. But we don't have that functionality yet, so we're going to use local storage instead. So you can find the information about your local storage in your dev tools if you come to application. And you can see for this web page on this browser, it's got these key value pairs that it's just going to store off here. So let's go ahead and use that. So in addition to setting the state so it renders properly, I'm going to call into my local storage, and I'm going to call set count and give it the key name of count, and then the value that I wanted to update to. So if I save that, come over here, we push on our count, notice now I get a count variable and it's updating there. But if I refresh, it's still going to go away here because I haven't remembered what that was, but it's stored properly within the local storage. So let's read that out instead of just defaulting to 0. Let's read that out of local storage. So I'm going to get the count from local storage. If it's not there, then I'm going to use 0. Now, one little gotcha here is that this is going to return it as a string, and I want to parse it as an int. So I'm going to call the JavaScript parse int function, and we're going to read that count out of there and actually remember what that value is based upon what it was initialized in local storage. Toggle back over, display it. You can see it's already pulled it in. If I save this here, it's incrementing, value's good. I refresh, it pulls it from local storage, displays it there. If I go to login page, don't have it here, but when I render it, I've got it actually rendering as what the value was in local storage. So that shows us some really cool things. State being controlled with React State use effect, and then we were able to actually display that using JavaScript, what the current value is. We can initialize it and store it with local storage, and we've got a really great start to our application. So the next part that we actually want to do is make it so that we can do a similar thing like we're doing with our count here, but we want to log in and remember who our users is that logging in, and also display that user value here. So I want to go to my login component and add myself an edit box here to actually display who's logging in. So if I head over here, we add an input box which is called text, type text, And then I want to put a button in here to actually do the login functionality. And then whenever I click on this thing, I want to actually log in who the user is. So on click, I'm going to simulate my login user functionality. Go add a function here, login user, and I can just, for right now, I can just say that it's logging in. Let's make sure that's working right. Go ahead and display our console window here, push login, and we can see we're logging in, but we're not reading actually what that is. So I need to know what is being typed in here so I can log that user in. So on my input, I can add an onChange handler and set that equal to some function like text change. And then go create a function which is text change. And I'm going to get an event that comes from the DOM whenever somebody changes that text. So I need to remember and read what that event actually is. And you can see that it's blowing in. That's just logging out the event, the target of the event, and what the value was. And that's pretty cool. Let's just make sure that's all working. So if I come and type here, you can see that I'm actually logging out what's happening there. But I need to store this off in a state variable so that I'll remember it whenever I actually push the login button. So do const. We can do our name right there. Let's actually call it text just to keep it clear what's actually happening here. So I'm setting my text. And instead of just logging that out now, I'm going to call set text equal to that target value. Cool. Okay, so now if I wanted to, I could come down here and underneath I could just put a div and I can see who the current person that we're potentially logging in is just to make sure that's all working right. And we want it to be not the string text, but the JavaScript variable text. So if I type in here, I'm actually getting that put in, and that's great. So now when I push login, I can actually say that I'm logging in the user represented by text. Okay, so let's go ahead and type that in there, push login, and I'm getting that login of that user there. Let's try a different username like cow. Go ahead and push login, and I'm logging in cow. Okay, great. Okay, so I don't really want that to display at the bottom, kind of ugly. I just want that functionality to actually log it in. So at this point, I probably want to write that user off to local storage because they pushed it. So I can do local storage again. This time I'm going to use the variable name of user and just put that text value in there. And I don't need to console log it anymore. Let's make sure that works. So I'm going to bring over my local storage functionality here. I've got my count from before, and I'm going to do a cow user. Push login, and I've stored that off to there. Now, just like we did with the count variable, we wanted to persist it, so we're going to write it off to our server or local storage till we get a server. But we also want to pass that information around. Like I want to pass the fact that that user was logged in as cow to the play page so that we can actually see who's playing here. So in order to do that, I'm going to do what's called pushing state up. So I've got a state variable here, which is the text. But I want to push up to the application component, who's the parent, what the actual username was logged in. So I'm going to go to my application component here, and I'm going to create a new state variable, which is called user. And I'm going to have the ability to set the user from it. Now it's going to read it from local storage if it's there. And if it's not there, then I want to set that equal to null, like it's not currently set. So there is no user until we actually log in. And I can actually do something here, like go to the JSX, and I can hide this navigation link by actually just writing JavaScript, like right in here, escaping into the curly brace. And I can say, if user, then go ahead and show the play thing. But if there is no user, then it's not going to show the play thing. Let's see if that worked. Toggling over here, refreshing in here. I've got a user, because I read that from there. So now I'm going to delete that key out of there. We're going to refresh our page, and now that play button went away because the user's not actually logged in. Click on the login. Come in here, type in fish as the person who's logged in. That's going to store it off into here. And now notice it didn't actually like refresh in order to re-render the page and show what's going on there. And that's because we haven't pushed up the fact that the user is logged in from the login component up to the application level component, which is the one that's actually determining whether the rendering is happening there or not. So let's go add that functionality here. When I log in, I want to be able to set the user. So that means in my login component, I have to pass down the function to actually set the user. So I'm going to call an attribute on here and pass down that set user function that I got from the state from right here. down into my login component. And then in my login component, I can actually receive as a parameter that ability to set the user. So set user. And then here, in addition to logging in and storing in local storage, I also want to call set user and pass in the text, which is the user's name. Okay, let's see how that works. Coming back over here, I'm going to go ahead and kill my user again by deleting that out of here. That should reflect that the login hasn't happened yet. I can come in here and I can do a dog login this time, push the login button, and notice that automatically, like, so cool, like calls up, sets that state on the application level component that controls like what nav links are actually displayed there. And now the final part is just to like pass that username down into my actual play component so I can display it there. And I actually might like to display that username here on the toolbar too. Let's go ahead and do that. That seems like a fun thing to do. So I'm going to come up here in my nav bar, right in here. I'm just going to display user so I can actually see who's logged in. So I can see I'm logged in as dog. I don't have a log out functionality, but you can kind of see how that would happen. You just delete the thing out of local storage. So right now I'm just doing that manually and forcing a login there, or a refresh there. And now I'm going to come in and log in as cat, do my login. Cat's cool. Now I want to go to my play page and I want to display cat here too. So now I've pushed the state up from the login component to the app component, and now I want to take that state from the app component and push it down into the login component. So I can play the same game here. So I can just do a parameter to the play component and say user right here, and then I can go to my play component and I can receive that parameter in my function. So if I pass in user here, and then I'm all set to actually display who the user is that's playing. So I'm going to just put a dash here, and I'm going to put my username right here, and we're good to go. So there you go. So cat's currently playing. We can see it in the URL, up in the, not the URL, but the nav bar. My login works. If I want to log in as someone else and I want to log in as rat, I can go ahead and push that button. I can see that it's rendering there. If I go over to my play page, I've got that actually rendering in there. Now, when I push login, I actually want to navigate directly to the play page. So let's go ahead and add the functionality for making that navigation happen automatically. So I've toggled over to my code, and I'm in my login component here. And when I actually do the login, I just want to navigate to it. So I'm going to add functionality in here from the React router, which is the use navigate hook. So in here, I'm going to use navigate. I can then come in, and along with my state variable, I can have the ability to navigate my router, my DOM router automatically. Use navigate. And then when I log in the user, I'm going to go ahead and call navigate. And I'm going to tell it what I want to navigate to. And in this case, I want to navigate to the play component. So we come back here. I log in. I log in as fish this time. Go ahead and push the login button, and I automatically navigate over to the play button. And the last thing that I want to show you is the ability to actually like have a timer that's going off that would represent like communication coming in. So this is your WebSocket placeholder. So the user, some other browser is like clicking on something, and then it's the server is telling you to actually render some message that's coming from them. So I'm going to go over to our play component, and I'm going to add a new state into here. And that state's going to be our message state. So constant message, set message. I'm going to set it initially to like listening because we haven't received anything from them. And then I'm going to use the React use effect hook. And to just get things started, yeah, there we go. This looks actually pretty good. We'll use what Copilot blew in here. So I've got 3 impossible users, just simulating users here that are doing different activities. And I'm going to grab one of those 3 names by random, and then I'm going to get some sort of random count number, how many times I've actually clicked on the button. I can generate my message from that by combining the username and the random count, and then I'm going to set that message using that set variable. Then I just need to display it. So down in my box here, I'm going to go ahead and put in a div, and I'm going to display that message. There we go, save that off. Toggle over here, we're seeing that every second we're actually generating something coming in here. Now, in your actual application, that would be a WebSocket message being sent to you, and you'd receive that and actually re-render whatever message is being in there. But we've done everything we need to do. Like there's navigation, there's there's functionality, there's state being passed around, we're storing things in local storage, and we've actually even simulated our WebSocket going in there. So hopefully that's enough to get you started to see how you can write your JavaScript and also integrate your React functionality in a very simplified way. Now you can go look at the Simon example and see a much more complex example. You're going to step through that and debug it, make sure you understand everything that's going on there. All right, good luck to you.